Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum, and welcome back to another Found Footage Friday with my co-host, Tom Reimer.
I was gonna count what episode this was, but I mean, we have to be getting close to 50 episodes, I
I
would
think
think.
we're almost to 40.
Almost to 40. Okay,
I
so I'm a
think
little
we're
bit off.
almost to 40.
Wow. We're gonna have to plan something big for the 50th
And
episode.
no, I guess it'll be, I was thinking it like mathematically in my head. So our anniversary is the first Friday in July.
Okay. Year
So
anniversary. Yeah.
so it
Yep.
won't be too much longer after 50 episodes that it'll be like we've been doing this show for a year.
Yeah. Wow. Going strong.
No, I can't. It doesn't even feel like we've done that many. Like,
No.
until I really think about it. But in general, I'm like, oh, like I don't even. It doesn't.
That's a lot of movies already, and there are like classic found footage movies we haven't even covered yet. So it's really awesome.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today?
Yeah, so today we are talking a very random one called this 2016 found footage movie called The Museum Project. This is on YouTube to watch for free. Yep. I will warn you, I tried to watch this from my Voices YouTube because I try to keep everything related because my main YouTube is really for my kid. But I could not deal with how often they do ad breaks because it's less than an hour long. And it's ad breaks every like 4 to 5 minutes. It's excessive.
Yeah.
So if you have YouTube Red, which is what I have on my other YouTube account, highly recommend logging in with that one because no ads.
Yeah. It definitely is a short movie in general, not just for found footage. It's just a what is it like? Did you say it was like 45 minutes, 44 minutes?
Like 40, it's like 46, 47 minutes. Yeah.
Something like that. Which sometimes, there's a few other movies that have done this. It sometimes doesn't work. I think for this movie, it was an appropriate length of time. So
I totally agree.
I actually liked for this movie the length of it.
The length of it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What was the other one that was like this? The doorbell one, Unknown Visitor. That one was
Unknown Visitor.
Less than an hour.
Host is less. I think less than an hour. And there's one we're going to talk about next week. That's just about
an hour. Yeah. Yeah. Which honestly, I'm glad people are still. I'm glad that time wise is not discouraging people from still putting out their product because.
Yep.
We'll get into this one, but like this was great for this one. The amount of time was fine. Like it wasn't a negative in any way. So
yeah, short, little, compact story, and it worked.
I agree. So this kind of impresses me, honestly. It has a 5.5 out of 10 on IMDb, which for found footage is like a 10 out of 10. Like fives and
really good.
Yeah. A 2.7 out of 5 on Letterboxd and a 5.8 out of 10 on the Found Footage Critic. If I can get this to come up, here we go. The Museum Project, 2016. So the description, without giving too much away, a group of students decide to base their media assignment on a local well-read museum myth. However, when they trespass the premises after hours, they soon learn that some myths are more than stories. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, this one, I don't even remember how we found this one or how it came up on a list. I don't know if it was, maybe I saw somebody post about it once, but
I do think it came from you.
Like one of these found footage Facebook groups or something that all the cool kids are part of. And so I think I saw it on one of those, but like otherwise, this isn't one that you really hear about very often. It's not one you see on anybody's top 10 list. I think it's just really not widely known. But it probably should be.
Yeah, I would definitely say this is a hidden gem. Like I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, obviously, like most of the time, especially if it's not something that's more mainstream, like, like VHS and the ones that we see the ads for, the trailers for, yada, yada. But most of the time, I go into these pretty blind. I don't like,
Yeah.
if we decide, hey, this is the one we're going to do, I'm like, all right, done, and I just jump in. I don't
Same.
really do a lot of anything, so I didn't have a lot of expectations. I just knew, we both like the haunted place elements. So we're like, oh, that sounds cool,
Hmm.
I was very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, the format,
Yeah,
it's a classic sort of setup.
it is.
Um,
Yep.
but the space that this movie is filmed in, which we'll talk about,
Hmm.
is conducive to being a short movie. It's a small little
Sure.
area.
Right.
And
Yeah,
I
you're right.
feel like if they had made this into an hour and a half long movie, it wouldn't have worked in the same way. It would have been
Yeah.
slower, probably dragged. So yeah, this really worked.
Yeah, I think this story and the action parts of it, the things that happen, are as compact as the location. And I think,
Yep.
to your point, I think,
Amazing.
like, exactly, if they had made it an hour and a half, I think it would have become dull. And I
Yep.
don't think the payoff would have been worth it, and we would have been frustrated by it, I think.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
time frame was perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so ratings.
Yeah. Ratings. Who's going first this week?
I don't mind. I'll take a leap.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I did like this one.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say that this movie is like overly complicated or anything like that. It's not like this one you know, did anything wildly different.
Hmm. Yeah.
But it did really well.
I
Um,
agree.
and so I'm going to give this movie a for what it is. I'm going to give this movie a 7. Give it a 7.
Okay. Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So I agree pretty much with everything you said. You know what it kind of reminded me of? It kind of reminded me of all the things I liked about that hotel one, Unfollowed
Yep.
or Followed or
Yep.
whichever followed,
Yep.
whichever one it was. I
We
mean,
never know the name of that
I
movie.
know because
I think it's
there's.
I think it's followed,
I
but
think it's
maybe
Followed
it's
as
not.
well. I don't think we've seen Unfollowed yet, or did
Okay.
we? I don't remember. It's either way though. It's the one with the YouTuber. I think,
Yeah.
like, so obviously conceptually it's different, but it had a lot of same things that I did like about that one. It kind of
Yep.
reminded me of it.
Yep. Yeah,
And
it's
yeah,
YouTuber found footage or content creator found footage, and
found
at the
footage
same time
and
haunted
haunted location.
location. Yeah, found footage.
Yeah. And I think, like, yeah, I really liked the premise. The story made sense. I mean, there was logic. There was, and like, I liked that. I was pleasantly surprised, like I said. Yeah, I think my rating, I think, I think I'm gonna go with like a 6.5 out of
That's what
10.
I was leaning at, but I
Isn't that
jumped.
so funny? Because I was on the
Yeah,
fence about the 6.5, but
that's where I was. Yeah,
I think that's really close to what I gave Followed. I think I gave
that's
Followed a
fair.
6.
Yeah,
And it really was, it made me feel very similar things, and that's kind of what I was feeling when I watched it. But
I wonder. I
I
wonder
mean,
what I wonder what I rated followed because I
higher.
thought
You
I
gave it a 7 or
yeah because I thought followed was scarier, but or had
yeah.
some scarier scenes, but there was more to it. There's more complicated
Yeah,
story.
way more complicated. Multiple
Yeah,
locations at times.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a little different.
yeah. But
But that's kind of, what it reminded me of. So
yep.
that's kind of like where my head was. But yeah, so I'm going to say 6.5. And I think, like, we will really, we don't just kind of like throw numbers. Like, most of the time we really are picky about the
Sure.
things that we give the higher numbers to. Um,
Yeah.
but because I watched this first, I think, and I was like, oh, I think you're gonna like this one. Like, you should watch it, because
Yeah.
we had talked about it, but we ended up doing. No, the museum project was on the poll, and it didn't get picked.
That's right.
That's
That's
what it
right.
was. Yeah,
But we put it on there. Yeah, someone had recommended it be on that poll.
yeah, and it was on
Maybe.
the so, but it wasn't chosen or anything. But
Right.
I saw it and I was interested, and I was like, I'm just gonna watch it anyway. And then I was like, oh, this is good. You should watch it.
It when I start out like thinking I want to watch a found footage movie, this sort of like has all the things like ideally that I want in a found footage movie for the most
Yeah.
part.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it doesn't like reinvent the wheel or anything. It's
Yeah.
not like anything wildly
No.
new,
No.
particularly exciting, but it's very well done.
Yeah.
And definitely has its scary moments as well.
Yeah, and the acting is really good. The practical
Sure.
effects were not overly cheesy. I think, honestly, because they're in the train museum, which is the museum. Let me say, like the museum portion of the title, but it worked in that setting because they're like in really tight quarters at certain points. Like, yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised. And then thinking about, well, how much I liked it and the fact that like nobody's really talking about it.
And another thing, yeah, it seems like we found something that's sort of like hidden, like a secret nobody knows
Yeah.
about. But another thing that I liked about this movie was
Mhm.
that, and we've mentioned we like this in some other found footage movies before,
Yeah,
is that it had some good lore in it.
it
Um,
did. Yeah.
and I would say that's the same about that the movie you compared it to, Followed.
Yeah.
Same thing. That movie had a good like backstory,
Yeah,
like
it's
good.
not a shallow storyline.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. No, I
Like
agree.
history, like rich history that they're digging up and poking around in. So that was good too.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. The story around it was really good. I liked it too.
So yeah, let's get into spoiling
Spoilers.
it, I guess.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think one of the things you sort of already touched on it that I liked about most about this was that well, I don't know if you did say this, but the acting was good, and the reason I thought it was good is because I thought that the characters felt like a real group of college kids making a project for school. Like that's what
Yeah.
it felt like. They were
Yep.
believable in those roles.
Hmm.
Um, it didn't feel like an overly polished product at all. Like it felt like
No, it felt very student
footage.
film.
Yep, felt very student film,
Yep.
which really works. I really love. I think one of the favorite examples that I have of that working is butterfly kisses.
Yes.
Is that
Yeah.
what that was called? Yeah.
Yeah. The one
It's
with
the
the
same.
tunnel.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
love that movie.
I
Yeah.
do love that one. Yep.
So that sort of like setup works and worked really well. Was it? I had a question actually about this. Was this set was it in Australia or
Yes. I
yes, it
think
was
it's
an
Australian. Yes.
Australian film.
I
Um,
think so. Yeah.
so that might be our first. Oh, it's not our first Australian film.
No.
We've seen at least one other. Okay.
Yeah.
Can't think of what was it. The Tunnel. I think The
Yeah.
Tunnel was the
Yes,
other
I
one.
think that's right. Well, and I think we've talked about that there's not that many of it. There's not that many Australia ones, right?
No,
Or some like
only a
I feel
couple.
like yeah,
3. Yeah, there's a few. Because I think Lake Mungo might be as well, which we have not
I
done
think
that
you're
yet.
right.
Believe it or not, we have not done
We
Lake
haven't done the
Mungo.
big ones, not
No.
really, not the ones that always come up for us in conversation.
Yeah. We'll get
Um,
there. We'll get there.
yeah, it's
But
good to
like,
give light to some of these other ones though, like that aren't.
oh yeah, like
Yeah,
this is one I'm really excited to sort of give attention to and
yeah,
hopefully get more eyes on it.
yeah. I
But
agree.
yeah. So it's a college film crew, and
Yep.
there's this story about a haunted railroad museum, basically, right?
Hmm. Yep.
And
Yep.
they decide they want to go and explore it. They go during the day at first,
Hmm.
and the person who runs the museum is acting sort of peculiar,
Yeah,
right?
he's like, yeah, we can't. He's like, no one's allowed in after hours because one of the things they say is like, oh, this would be so much better at night. We could
Yeah,
really catch some stuff. But he's also like, he also gets very fidgety when they start talking about the man that they found the information about on the internet about the killer that got
yeah,
away on the train and all of that stuff. And like he gets very like oh, like we're not going to talk about that. Like he's very just like like didn't want to
yeah,
go in that direction, which of course naturally makes them want to do it more because then they're like, oh, like
yeah.
yeah, yeah, which
But
obviously we find out later had like a totally different reasoning behind it anyway. But but yeah, that
But it's bad news from the start because obviously
yes.
they're breaking in. They decide to break into this place after hours when it is dark. They leave
Yeah.
the door unlocked for themselves,
Mhm.
and they come back, which is just a really bad idea. um,
Yeah.
Always is a bad idea in these movies. Always ends poorly, and yeah,
Mhm.
they basically this is you're already at this point like almost done with the movie. I feel like by the time they come back, um, the
Yeah, it's
very
it's a little over halfway. Yeah, it's over
yeah,
halfway. Yeah, you're right. It's like
with
20 minutes left or something, I
20
think.
minutes left in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the end of the movie is them sort of exploring and filming this train at night. There's a few really kind of weird, creepy things happening, but nothing
Mhm.
crazy until
Yeah.
the very end.
Yeah, the
Um,
door is like the first thing that happens. The door
so
behind him.
Well,
I
actually,
love shots like that.
even during the daytime, there was like the hanging
The
watch,
watch.
which is there one moment, gone the next.
Mhm.
So like little things, but yeah, keep any time in a found footage movie that
Mhm.
the person who's holding the camera puts down the camera,
Yes.
and it's still trained on them, and there's stuff happening in the background
Oh,
behind them.
love it.
You know, though there's going to be something there, and I felt myself throughout this entire movie, like always sort of like looking in the background and
Same,
is
same.
something going to suddenly pop out?
Yep.
Um, and there were a couple of moments where
Mhm.
you're like looking at the background and then you see that the shape
Yeah.
standing there,
Yep.
which was, I mean, the few moments
Mhm.
where you see something in this movie,
Mhm.
I think it's like really well done. This didn't it for what felt like a student project. The stuff at the end felt really, it felt more high budget. It felt, you know what I'm saying, like the guy
Yeah, like
at
the
the end.
quality of the yeah, 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 yeah. Well, and I think a lot of the scares are so practical, anybody could do them. You know, the door opening, anybody could do that.
Sure.
The bench moving, anybody could do that. The lights and noise, whatever that thing was, the
Yep.
signal or whatever, that going off, that's easy, right? But then we started getting into those things where like the guy appears, then he gets warped out, like his face does that
His
weird
like jaw like
great
elongates.
encounters
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. And which is great. I like no problems
Love
with
it.
that at
Yeah.
all. And then the one that I did think was really good, and it's so simple, but I really liked it, is when they decide they should maybe leave, or they're thinking about leaving, and they
Yeah.
go by the door, and then
Yeah.
they like that's I think that's when that happens, when that air just goes woof and like throws itself at them, and her
Yep.
hair goes back, and they're
Oh
just
yeah.
like,
That was a cool effect. Yep.
that was really cool. And it was
Because
such
you
a
could see it.
single,
Yeah.
like simple moment, but it was so good. I loved that happened, and I was like, this is about to get crazy. Like,
It's a good point. Yeah, because like a lot of the special effects, I was like, oh, okay. It was all practical special
yes.
effects. Like the camera turns one way, there's nothing there. Turns back, there's something
And
there. That
suddenly
kind of
there
thing.
is, right.
There's a bell ringing somewhere in the distance. There's a crash, and then they go and find a cracked picture frame. Like nothing. And again, you said the door like slowly opening. Like
Those simple
yeah,
things, but I think the environment and the build up to those moments is one of the reasons that they work so well, because they
yeah.
do. Like I love that what you were just talking about, where they put the camera down. I love shots
Oh
like that, because you're
yes.
just like, it's that whole like slasher thing. We're like, behind you, and you're just, I don't know. I love those shots. I think they're great.
But you're right, like so like a lot of these like practical effects, when then you get something that's more than practical, it like stands out more in a
It
really good
does.
way. Like it's like,
Yep,
whoa, I wasn't expecting that. And you
totally
get
does.
some of those moments that were really surprising in this movie.
Mhm.
I did not expect some of those camera angles we got of this whoever this dude was at the
I
end of the
forgot his
movie
name, but
were
yeah.
really scary.
Yeah, they were. No, I totally agree. Cause well, and then it's like, and it follows the same formula. You know, we get a lot of slower stuff in the beginning, and then the ending is the part that goes kind of nuts. So,
Yep.
and then of course it starts with one person going missing. And
Yep.
then it's like they find all of his stuff and they're like, oh, he would never leave his equipment like this. He would never, all these things. And then they decide, like, oh, like one wants to leave. One's like, we can't leave him. He's like, no, let's go get help. She's like, no, we can't do that. And they go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then so they end up, so they stay essentially to try to
They
find
should have
his
left.
friend.
They should have left.
They should have left and gone to get help and just taken the ticket for breaking and entering or whatever it would have been.
Yeah.
Probably not, probably more than a ticket. I don't know. But it's like and then that's, you know, that's when we start seeing that guy more. And then she, you know, they're going through and you're waiting because you know it's building up to this moment of like craziness. And they get to that part where like the guy gets off and she's still standing on the thing and the door closes. And you're just
Yep.
like
Yeah. Yep. And then they meet their untimely demise at the end,
yeah.
right there. And it happens pretty fast.
It's very
Right at
fast.
the end, it's like. But I think one problem sometimes I have is like I often really like the build up and I like the story that these movies start with, and then all of a sudden it ends in a really unsatisfying way. Even though this movie was really short, I
Mhm.
thought the ending was perfect. It was very
I
satisfying, and
I had no complaints.
I didn't feel like, oh, they could have done so much. They could have. Nope, that's what the story was. It was short. It wasn't, a lot to it, but
Mhm.
it ended as it should have ended. And it honestly, I did find myself yelling at these characters because, um, yeah, especially at that moment when they're standing there, like we should leave, and you're like, you literally just saw a
Yeah, no, that's
man with his jaw hanging off of his body, and you're like, yeah, I think we should stay. We might get arrested. I mean, like
who cares? Like,
that
I'll
to
just
me.
take the punishment. Like,
I guess that was my. If I had to pick one thing about this movie,
yeah,
that was a little hard to believe that they would have
yeah,
stayed
yeah.
after seeing what they, unless they didn't see what the viewer saw, but I think they did.
I
Um,
think they did too because I feel like they reacted. They One of them
yeah,
says, "Did you
well, they
see him?"
run.
or something. They were like, they respond, they react. Well, because that's always the thing. Like we always talk about, like, oh, like is there a reason to still hold the camera? But one of the things that's like super common in horror in general is why are you there still? Like,
Right.
it's such a
Not
common
just
question.
found footage. Yeah.
No, it's not just found footage. It's across the board for
I
like
think
all
the camera, I didn't really think about that, but I think the camera itself did make sense here because I think it was their flash, it was their light. There
yeah, it
was
was
no
super
light.
dark. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that sort of solved itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, the
Yeah.
why are you still standing? Why would you go back? Why would you not get a weapon? Why would you not
Yeah.
like get help? Um,
Yeah, I don't, and I think this is another, the storyline and the ending and everything being the way as being as satisfactory as it was. I think some of that has to do with the time frame too, because we really didn't have long drawn out things going on with them still holding the camera. It was like
right.
it went from like not very, like some creepy stuff was happening. They're excited because that's why they're there. The friend goes missing, all hell breaks loose, and then the movie's over. And so there's not a lot of time for us, at least I didn't feel as a viewer, to be like, why are we still filming? Why are we doing this?
No.
Why are we
No.
doing, you didn't really get a lot of it, just that one moment where they have that discussion. And then right after that is when it gets really nuts and then it's like over.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of, in a lot of found footage movie. There are scenes where
Mhm.
not a lot is happening, in that you often have like these elongated shots of
Yes.
nothing, waiting for something to happen, which
Yes.
sometimes really is effective.
Yeah.
But other times it can be slow. And this
Mhm.
movie, I think, just like took off, like chopped off all the fat. Like it was just
Yep. Yep.
the most important pieces they left in, and
Mhm.
it's great and it's free. So
On YouTube. Like,
on YouTube.
oh,
Uh,
and we do have to talk about the ending with who ends up with the camera.
oh yeah, I was interested. So I'm curious your interpretation of that at the end.
Yeah. So, okay.
So is
So
that supposed to be the next day?
The next morning.
The next morning. Okay.
Yeah, because he was like super weird, right? The guy, the train, I don't know what it is, whatever, the museum director, whatever his
Yeah,
name.
he didn't want to talk about
Yeah.
the haunted nature of the building. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, you can't come at night because it's against our insurance policy. But then I remember thinking, like, did he really leave people in there and not go check that door? But then when the camera is lifted again, it's him, and you're just like, he did all of that on purpose. He
Do you is
literally
that how you
set
read
them
that?
up. Yeah,
You think
because he
that?
walked away from them, unlocked that door loud as could be, and was just like, haha, and just like walked off. I think he was trying to get them. I also think he's the one that put the watch on the train on the outside and
Yeah.
moved it.
So do you think he saw their bodies there when he got the camera? Were they still there?
That's the part. So see,
I don't
I'm not
know.
sure how much of this is human and supernatural because my
Right.
initial thought, if there had never been a physical entity or like a smoke, I would have thought he did it all because he survived and he was the murderer on the train.
Yeah.
But that can't really be it because we see a physical, like, that's obviously not him.
No.
So then it becomes, was he an accomplice? Is it somebody, like, that part's kind of unclear, but I didn't hate that it was unclear because he hid the photo. He put up the photo in a specific place
Yeah.
on purpose because he puts the watch and the photo back in his drawer when he gets in the office.
I was wondering if it was more along the lines of he didn't necessarily set them up, but he like knew and surmised and wasn't surprised by what happened. Like, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
I
Like
can see it going that
he
way.
knows the truth and saw evidence that they've been there and could figure out what probably happened to them.
And then
But I
just
wondered if
covered
they
it
were
up.
gone, like really gone, because their other friend, we never saw what
We
happened
never
to him.
saw his body.
Yeah, and so I wondered if the same thing happened to the second, the third person, in which case the owner of the museum wouldn't have had anything to, get rid of.
Yeah, I think the only reason I went set up is because I felt like otherwise some of those other things are too careless.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
With the
yeah.
door specifically, because
So set up because he's feeding this ghost or
yeah,
whatever it is. Yeah,
yeah. And I guess if you wanted to make up a reason as to why, you really could go accomplice, family member. You
yep.
know what I did not pay attention to? His name. Like, did they have the same name?
I did that. You're right. I don't know.
I
Because
didn't pay attention to
it's one
that.
of
And I
those.
wonder if that's something that comes full circle and then you're
Yeah,
supposed to, I'm not sure. I don't I
it's one of those things though. You don't suspect him. I think
Not at
at the
all.
beginning of
No,
the
I
movie, so
didn't.
you
No.
wouldn't necessarily be like memorizing his name, but it would be
It's
interesting if
clever.
you go back and like watch,
Yeah,
like if
if
you did
that's
a
what it
rewatch.
is, they did this very cleverly because,
Yeah,
like, I really, you're right, you don't distrust him. He just acts like one of those paranoid people that's like, I don't
yeah,
want to talk about that. It's weird. I have to work here. And then
yeah,
and then he gives that whole pitch about being respectful of the railway and like all this, all that kind of stuff too. And he's like, we just want the museum to be recognized for what it is, yada yada. And so you really buy into that. This, like,
yeah.
and so that's why when he picked, because I was already enjoying the movie, but I didn't expect that clip to happen. I thought we were done.
Yeah, there's sort of like a break, right? There was like
Hmm.
you think the
Yeah.
movie's over, and then actually it's the next morning, and here's
Yep.
the owner of the museum. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was a kind of cool bow on the end, cherry
I
on the
really
top,
liked
whatever you want
that.
to call it. Yeah, yeah,
I
twist.
really liked it.
But I mean, I wish more people knew about this movie. Like this one, it just screams, uh, you know, to me, something that people of this genre would want to watch. Like if you like found
I
footage, I can't imagine why you wouldn't like this.
I totally agree. I also didn't realize that it was 2016. I was thinking for
Yeah,
some
it's
reason
older.
it was sooner than that, but that's what it said.
Do you think some people, well, are turned off by the length of the movie? It might be the
I don't
shortest
know.
found footage movie or even like a movie I can name, like
I
feature.
don't know because I mean maybe there's like a difference in this like as far as lengths, but people really love shorts. Like horror shorts, they're huge. But
Yeah,
horror shorts usually aren't more than like 15-20 minutes.
right. This is like a weird
It's like a
length.
in between, like a
Yeah. I mean, I think like a movie that's like 85 minutes is short.
yeah,
Uh,
these days it is.
yeah. And so 45 minutes, that's
Yeah.
really, really unusual. But this might be
Yeah.
the rare instance that it would work. I bet like most of the time it would not be enough for almost every movie, including found footage movies. So
Yeah, I think it's a testament to the project in its entirety. The writing, the acting, the effects, the story, everything. I think all of those components being what they are, that's why the time works because like like you said between I mean even considering just the space they're in, it's not big enough for them to just keep doing because and again they'll just end up going through cars over and over and over again and you're just like okay we've seen this already and so no I really liked this one. I went into it completely blind and I was just like oh my god that was really good like
yeah, I maybe part of the reason we liked it so much is that we had like zero expectations for
maybe
it.
yeah
I mean, I
there
had
was no hype.
nope, none. Whereas, like, I think that the hype has worked against us for some other movies, particularly
Incantation, it didn't. Incantation, we
didn't
also
with it, but like Outwaters, uh,
Outwaters, not Dread, Deadstream,
Dead Deadstream,
VHS 90. What was it?
Dashcam.
Oh yeah, Dashcam was a huge one. Yeah,
I don't know if it was the hype for that one, but
and it's but then it's so crazy too because we went into Horror in the High Desert too. Or at least I did. My expectations were really high because I love the
yeah,
first one.
that's one of
And
the yeah.
that's one of the rare occasions where it like even exceeded that,
Yes.
like what, but that isn't common. You're right. Hype. And I'm horrible about like, I straight up won't see stuff based off hype. Like
I'm the
you
same.
know,
Sometimes I avoid stuff. Sometimes I like avoid something because everybody's talking, or I'll
I
watch
do
it a little
the
bit later, just because I
totally,
want to wait and not. Yeah.
I do the
So
exact same thing. I do the exact same thing. But yeah, no, I loved this one. I thought it was really good.
the Museum Project.
If I remember, I'll put the YouTube link for where you can find this in the description for this episode because you literally just go to YouTube and watch it. It's not,
If you're watching this episode right now, you could
just click
just
it.
watch that movie
Go watch it.
without missing a beat.
That's right. Yeah. So,
Well, what's next week? What are we talking about?
the Dybbuk box.
Ooh, Dybbuk box. I saw a tail.
I know, like I don't know if you saw the
That was
first half of the
really
video.
funny.
He was just like sitting right here, and you just see his little face. I'm like, can you please get
Oh,
situated?
I just saw the tail.
The
Like,
tail. Yeah, it's the Dybbuk box, the story of Chris Chambers.
okay, can't wait.
Yeah. Yeah, and that one's on Tubi if you want to watch it before next week's episode.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and I was going to tell you, I can't remember if he posted. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but Ron is finally getting caught up on. He's been busy and he's finally catching up on episodes. So he said that he watched our Horror in the High Desert one,
The
for
first
part
one.
2.
Oh, this
And
part
he
2.
said for part 2, and he said he got like halfway, he got to the spoiler part and he like cut it off. He was like, we sounded like we convinced him to go watch it.
That's the goal. That's the goal. These episodes serve two purposes. The first half is for the people that haven't seen the movie. Second half is for people who want to see what we thought about the movie. So
yeah, that's why we do it that way. Yeah.
love it.
So anyway, I just thought that was cool that he made a point to say that because I was like, yeah, get more people watching found footage.
Hey, Ron. Shout out.
Yeah, our number one fan for found footage. He's the best. But yeah, so we'll be back next week with the Dybbuk box. Again, that's on
All right.
Tubi if you want to watch it before next week's episode. By the time this episode is out, Tom is going to be very busy.
Actually, yeah, when this episode airs,
Yeah.
so we can say happy Friday. We can also say happy AuthorCon because that's where
Yeah.
this is out on. This episode will air on Friday, the 31st.
First. Yep.
And yeah, I will be in Williamsburg, Virginia at AuthorCon. And actually, the day after this airs, a couple days after this airs, I will be doing a found footage panel.
That's right.
So
Yay.
maybe I'll see some of you there.
Yeah, that'd be good. Go
for
say
some
hey.
found footage chatter.
Yeah.
Just look. My table will literally have a thing on it that says "Found Footage Friday," so it'll be easy to find it.
You have to send me a picture of your setup when you get it.
I will.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us on this Found Footage Friday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and Tom and I will see you next week.
Happy Friday.